Charlie 916, departing 25. Turn out to the south approach. Runway 25, it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 20th of May. And typical afternoon wind. Down here we have our harbor, Roach Harbor, the largest marinas on the west coast. Over here to the left is Open Bay. Open Bay is famous for the loss of Ina Nielsen a couple years ago. He was fishing here alone about 4 in the afternoon and caught into a 65-pound king. He was on the boat by himself, and he was found the next day dead in his boat with his fish. That fish is now mounted in the bar at Roach Harbor.
Final runway 34 at the golf course, Friday Harbor.
The next week you could walk from boat to boat in that harbor to that bay, people looking for the fish's brother. We're going down the coast of San Juan Island. This entrance is called Mosquito Pass, which is one of 3 entrances to Roach Harbor. Inside Mosquito Pass is Prescott Bay. Then over to your left you can see English Camp, which is where the English settled during the Pig War. Down the coast, we're going to come up to a lighthouse called Limekiln, and Limekiln is a place where a lot of people hang out to watch the whales, and the whales gather here because this is where the tides break and separate, and so there's the least amount of tide activity right at Limekiln, which means the most amount of fish, which means the most amount of whales. So Limekiln is, if you're going to find whales, that's a common place you'd find them. Down here is a little island, and that was featured in the movie Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock a few years back. On that grassy knoll there, they built a house. It was a pretty big house, and it was there for the movie, and employed a lot of people that summer on the island.
4.5 final 25 Roach.
Into view in the lower left here is Limekiln, which is the lighthouse I mentioned. There are picnic tables both north and south of the lighthouse, Limekiln. We used to fish there quite a bit. You catch fish if there's no whales. If there's whales, you won't catch fish. One time we were fishing off the just south of the lighthouse there, and on the picnic table was a young couple making whoopee in the sunlight there. They missed the whale show. Go down the coast here. We see Kanaka Bay. And Kanaka Bay was first settled by the Hawaiians. And these Hawaiians came up from Hawaii, and they brought a bunch of sheep. And so the first sheep herders on the island were Hawaiians. Still are some Hawaiians left on the island, but there are 3 settlements of Hawaiians on the island at Kanaka Bay, and then I want to say Little Fair, Portland Fair is the other place, and the other one is up northeast here. A little farther south in Kanaka Bay is False Bay. And False Bay looks like a bay, but was originally, was intended by Iceland developers to be as big as Roach Harbor with homes lining the shoreline. They're going to dredge it out. You'll see down here on the left there is a runway. That runway was going to be expanded to 5,000 feet to accommodate jets. They were going to put in a big gambling casino and resort right here. The guy who financed it was a guy who was Johnny Weissmuller's stunt double in the Tarzan movies. And eventually he ran out of money and some boys from Chicago got involved, and they weren't getting paid back on a regular basis, and all hell broke loose, and they ultimately took over, and then found this wasn't a really good place for the boys from Chicago, so they left, and Sam Buck got most of the property. And like most projects that start, somebody else finishes and makes money on them. It's called the Valley down here. And we're coming down to Cattle Point, which is the southern point of the island. And this is where the American camp is. So the Americans during the Pig War were down here. And they camped in, the only fatalities of the war were 19 Americans, and they all committed suicide due to boredom. And not a shot was fired, but it was a very windy, you see there's no trees there, it's a very, very windy place, miserable place to be. And the Brits up where we took off from, the English camp did just fine, had nice gardens and protected from the wind. And the Americans just had a miserable time here. The last commander was Commander Roberts, graduate of West Point, and he had absolutely nothing to do. So sitting there looking out, he decided to write something called Robert's Rules of Order. And Robert's Rules of Order is what all business meetings and corporate meetings are conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order. So we're coming up on Salmon Bank here. Pretty good place to fish. Cattle pass, a lot of current goes through here, and you can get really bounced around pretty good by the currents. Particularly if you have an ebb and a southerly wind, it can get pretty rough in there. This island over here, called Goose Island, it's some sort of a federal park. And it's known for catching fire. Someone was playing with fireworks a year ago, and they caught fire and burned for a long time. They couldn't put the fire out. The fire turned out to be bird shit. And guano, they call it. They tried to put the fire out. Finally, they just let it burn itself out. But the smell from the fire really made it miserable for people living there. Coming up in the south end of Lopez Island, and Lopez is a flatter island of all the San Juans, and it's a popular island for bike riding. And people are known, every time people go by somewhere, they wave their hands. They like to wave a lot here. There's a gal named Ruth Neslin that used to live down here, ran a bed and breakfast. Her husband was Roloff Neslin. And Ruth didn't much care for Roloff's girlfriend. Oh, yeah, Roloff was only 83 years old with a 65-year-old girlfriend. Anyway, Ruth held him down and had her brother shoot him. And then they never did find the body. And she tried to collect on the insurance money, and although they got the money because they never found the body. But she was finally convicted of the murder many, many years ago, but no one in Lopez would testify against her because they liked her. So up on the island there's a place called Island Marine Center, and the guy named Ron Bank who owned it got a request from Ruth to bring down a 55-gallon drum of epoxy. And as near as we can tell, that's where Roloff ended up, in the barrel of epoxy got rolled into the bay somewhere. To reduce Roloff down to a manageable size, they bought a big meat grinder and ground them up. And when they're done with the meat grinder, they didn't need it. It's a commercial grinder, hand cranked. So they sold it to the local high school. And for years afterwards, the high school was known for making Roloff burgers. So we're coming down here on Iceberg Point. And two guys were rescued out of the water here just a couple days ago. Straight ahead of us is Whidbey Island Naval Air Station. One of of the larger naval air stations that practices carrier landings. They have a simulated carrier deck a little farther south. A member of my flying club was flying a Navy jet here with another guy, and they flamed out, and his wingman bailed out, crashed into the water here, and so after he got out of the Navy, he came back and was able to analyze a lot of data and was able to actually find the jet roughly where we're at right now. The Navy had searched for it for years and couldn't find it, but he found it on his own with his own equipment. The town straight ahead of us is Anacortes, and that's where you catch a ferry if you were coming over to the islands. Starting to turn back up north now. We'll go by Paul Allen's estate called Sperry Peninsula. And Sperry Peninsula, well, it's basically an island with a little tiny neck of land that you can drive on there. Mr. Allen usually comes in by helicopter. Has something like 40 employees there. And he has 40,000 square foot homes there. My Seasport was originally used to support that when they built this place. The superintendent owned the Seasport. That's my claim to fame with the Seasport. I'll go over by Mr. Allen's estate here. On rare occasions, you'll see his one of his yachts here. He's got 3 large yachts. Largest called Octopussy, but it could barely fit into that bay there. So I'll lift the wire, drop the wing, and you'll see his tennis compound. And he's got some sort of an entertainment center there. It's a 3- or 4-story entertainment center. And this used to be where Camp Nor'Wester was, which occupied Sperry Peninsula. And so when they decided to do this, they bought property up on John's Island and gave it to Camp Nor'Wester. There's 3 houses. One's for Mr. Allen, the others for his sister Jody, and the others for his mother. And basically everything Allen does, he does one for each. We're heading up north on the east side of Lopez Island now. On the right is Center Island, and they used to have a scheduled air service from Anacortes over to Center. Was in the Guinness Book of Records for the shortest scheduled flight in the United States of, I think it was 3.5 minutes from Anacortes to Center. So we're flying at about 1,000 feet, doing about 115 knots.
Expect now 5 miles south, planning straight in for 3-4, Point Harbor.
So we've slowed it down just for a sightseeing flight here. In front of us is the Spencer Spit, which is a state park, and it's a real popular place to anchor there on Lopez. Get some idea of how flat Lopez is. It's just it's a great place for bike riding. People are pretty laid back at Lopez. It's Mignon Island. They just, for the amount of island it is, there's relatively few people, and they're pretty laid back. You're keeping your eyes out there, aren't you, Brett, for other aircraft? Yep. One of the taller solar or wind generators there.
Point Harbor traffic, Skyhawk 519 Quebec, on final runway 34, Point Harbor, full stop.
In front of us, you can see another runway. That's Windsock Farms, runs north and south. About 3 or 4 runways on Lopez. The main one is down near the golf course, and it's sometimes fairly turbulent. You don't want to go in there on a hot summer day because you really get beat up there. And we've lost several planes over there over the years. So now you can see Windsock Farm Airport there. Trees at the north end, so you want to generally land to the north, take off to the south. In front of us is a very large island called Orcas Island. And then on the top of it is Mount Constitution. To our left is Shaw Island. Shaw is always a very politically active island for some reason. And they have two competing Catholic convents there. One used to have the contract to run the ferry system there. And they'd always compete against each other for the ferry system. Apparently they don't care much for each other, but I've heard.
Roach Harbor, traffic King Air 923 Foxtrot, Papa's position hold, runway 5, Roach Harbor.
King Air just announced it comes out of Yakima. During the season it comes over twice a day, bringing some folks over. Got a big apple farm over there. This is Blind Bay down here, popular anchorage. Got a lot of rocks in it, so you really have to be careful with the rocks in Blind Bay. And down there you can see another runway in the Shaw Island. Technically that's the official runway on Shaw. Up to our right up here is West Sound, and there's a marina in there. And the Kaiser family and the Nordstrom family own much of this property in front of us here. Several very large estates. On the other side would be Deer Harbor. So there's Deer Harbor on our right over there, Fred. And you can see the part of a runway that goes up in there. Mr. Paul Whittier on that thing. Okay, we'll go ahead and land Roach then. Roach traffic, Skyline 9016 is 3.5 to the southeast, be landing 25 Roach. Roach 9016 on a 2.5 mile left base, landing 25 Roach. Roach 9016, short final 25 Roach.